talk about indoctrination.
Thanks for the invitation. Always glad to be here. This is a joint work with past student of mine, Lotem, finished her master thesis a year ago. And this paper is based, the first part of the paper is based on our thesis, and now we are making this out as a research paper. We started working on this during the Corona days, and we're zooming about the potential thesis subject. And she told me about a movie she saw, The Social Dilemma, which talks about social networks. And I'm quite fond of social networks, especially Twitter. And so I had in mind a few anecdotal empirical examples of things we know about Twitter, about how the debate in Twitter evolves, a typical debate or a general one. And so we started talking about this idea, and eventually we came across the concept of studying public debates, assuming that social networks reflect some aspects of public debates, or this is how we run public debates these days. The idea was to study public debates in a very specific manner. So I'm going to start with the empirical examples to exemplify what we tried to capture and how we moved on to, once we were successful in pinning down these aspects, how we continue to other potential ideas about social networks and public debates. So one nice feature of public debate is the fact that we have this tendency to hear, don't necessarily hear the vast majority of individuals. This is taken from a Pew Research Center paper from 2018. It was during the midterms and during the Trump administration. So the idea was to study how the political oriented tweets in Twitter, how they are generated by a team. So their analysis showed that 97% of the tweets that reflect some political statement, evolve around some political aspect, is generated by only the top most active users of Twitter. So most of the debate, vast majority of the debate is this topic is generated by really few individuals. Vast majority of individuals don't generate any content at all. And from my personal experience, this is actually true in many subjects. I mean, usually we have this only in very heated debates, but usually most of the content is generated by few individuals, not many. Most of individuals just observe that's going on and just consume content. So I had this in mind because it was 2020 when we talked about it, 2021, and I know I knew these examples before, and the idea was whether we can actually generate this result in a community. I mean, whether we can construct a model which, in some sense, captures the basic aspects of the base and actually generate this result in equilibrium, where you have silent majority and vocal minority. These are not our terminology actually, and these are not the terminology of this research paper. There's a different paper I'm going to relate later on, which showed the same empirical examples in different topics. Okay, so at that point we start discussing of how to model public debates. And specifically, what we had in mind was politics. Okay, so obviously now in Italy we have very tense political debate over the judicial system overall. And the idea was, what's the underlying mechanism in political debates on social platform and in general? And this is where we classified at least 3 topics, or three general debates that we typically have that are potentially, not always, but potentially quite different from other things that we model in theoretical economics. Specifically, classified 3 subjects: sports, politics, and religion. I'm going to stick with sports because it's least controversial at this point. And the idea was that, and this is the basic assumption in our model, there's no basic objective proof to the question regarding sports. I mean, you're not a fan of a sports team because of you've seen all the information concerning that sports team, and you decided that's the correct one that everyone should be a fan of. And you don't necessarily, I mean, there is no objective greatest player of all time. Okay, so if we take basketball, for example, some people think that Michael Jordan was, a few thinks that Curry is, or LeBron James, and so on. But we know all the statistics. I mean, there's no uncertainty. There's no objective state where one of them is the greatest of all time. There are basically what we have is just perspectives. We have opinions, basically. And the same is true for politics. Actually, there is no objective truth whether you believe or not that people have a right to do something, or that people are born free, or any other these statements. Basically, what you have is your opinion. It's based on your life experience, but there is no objective truth. There are mechanisms, there are reasons. You can reason for something, that one thing is better than the other, but basically you're just presenting your preferences. So that was the idea on how to construct the model. Basically, what we're trying to do, and you can see this in the model itself, we're trying to divert from the Bayesian inference structure where you have an unknown state of the world, everyone have some information, a signal, and then you start sharing information according to some utility function that you have. Okay, so we're not going to persuasion models. It's not the classical social learning model. You're not trying to discover some unknown state. It doesn't exist. What you have is your opinion, and that's it. You're trying to persuade other people to take your opinion, but you don't really convey objective information. Okay, so our goal in this setup is to study public debates. And what we are structuring this on a type of contest, as in the alt-pay framework and the other contest. We're just pointing out these examples and generating a new type of contest where people just hold fixed opinions. First, at the beginning, they hold fixed opinion, then they move to evolve. And now they are trying to control the debate. What they are aiming at is your private opinion to be the ones that are most reflected in the debate. Basically, I'm trying to be as noisy as I can in order for everybody to just see my opinion and eventually just tend towards what I'm saying. Okay, so the paper has 3 parts. The first one is just the basic simple contest. Okay, and the closest to ours are it's in the realm of context with externalities. So the basic structure goes to develop in 1980. But the closest to R is the jet paper by Esteban and Lagziel and by Linster that presented a rather broad discussion over color contest. And there, he was the first one to present it with externalities, meaning really broad externalities. And he certainly had a contest, but that has some resemblance of ours. Specifically because we group together a lot of individuals that usually don't do that in contests. We have every individual on its own, but Schumer actually grouped them together into groups, and that's what we're doing also. That's the first part of it. The second part talks about an advanced, still a contest, but with some adjustments. And then we use a measure of polarization. The idea was, let's see how we can measure polarization within a debate. And for that, we use the seminal paper, and again, Esteban in Ray from its fundamental 1994. And they have a nice axiomatic approach to study polarization matrix and metrics, and another metric to define polarization in our content. And last, in the last part of the paper, we moved on to dynamic opinions. So we used the basing, the underlying model, in order to generate some dynamics, so people can actually evolve, the opinions can evolve. And the closest to ours, I think, it's not the same. None of these are exactly wordly, but just highlighted the good because being the first one presenting some simple heuristics that people opinions can evolve. Okay, so when we start off with the basic game, these are the three parts: the basic game, limited, explorative, and dynamic.
You present very theory papers. I mean, general papers. You talk about papers that resemble the actual problem that you.
Yes, this is about. These are the ones that they're close to ours. They generally come.
They don't talk about the opinions and.
No, opinions are basically what we're doing.
So I'm asking, are you the first to talk about this?
I'm afraid. So I'm not aware of models that actually that diverge from the idea that we have an objective state of the world and we're just discussing groups. Okay, I mean the group did that because he assumed subjective probabilities in some sense, but that's implicit. Saying this explicitly, I'm not aware of anything other than that. But the basic structure is still these two studies. The strategic structure. We just gave it a different interpretation.
By the way, many arguments about politics that I see are about facts. You must have seen many of them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to, because I don't have nothing to contribute about facts. That's true.
I'm saying that maybe it's more true about sports than about politics. The debates are not about facts.
So I'll say this. I say I'm a more liberal person. Okay. And Isai Luman is more conservative for politics. And I don't think we disagree on facts.
Yeah, no, okay.
Yeah, so this is what we're trying to catch, but not the data of fact. I don't have one say about
It's not facts, it's predictions.
No. I
It's
see many arguments about facts.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Somebody lies and then
Yeah.
Alternative.
Exactly.
There is also the predictions, does this fall under your opinions?
No, I think.
Because, many times we agree that we want, safe,
Yeah, but-
I think we.
I wouldn't sell this model in this way because we're not really talking about projections. I mean, that will be too broad of an interpretation of what we're doing. And the actual concept is where there's no objective state, and we're trying to discuss That's it. Okay, so the basic we have first. I'm going to present the model, payoffs, first main theorem, and a few. So the basic model, we have n pairs, more than 2 otherwise not that interesting. K opinions again equal to 2. And the opinions are just numbers going from the smallest one, O1 to OK. Okay, so these are numbers on the green line. And Ni is the pairs with opinion I. Okay, so they all share the same opinion. And I'm assuming these are non-empty groups, sets of individuals. The action set, as typical in contest theory, the action set of failure is just all non-negative numbers. An action profile, we denote it by this E. It's called E. And what once we have, well, I'm assuming that every individual generates some opinion, and I'm assuming this is not a zero vector. Yeah. Well, in case it is a zero vector, I'm going to explain what we're doing. So, assuming this is not a zero vector, we're generating a random variable. And we're just defining a random variable, which reflects the public opinion. Okay, so the public opinion is a random variable, basically a distribution, where you get opinion I according to this distribution, with probability I, that's the total effort of all individuals in group Ni, divided by all the sum of all efforts. Okay, so the sum. Capital A is the sum of all efforts over all players in Ni. Okay, so capital A, we're taking all efforts out of everybody that's trying to sell opinion I. We group all of them together and we call this DI, the total effort. And the sum of all efforts is the sum of all efforts.
It's a proportion of vectors.
Yeah. So the idea behind this is think about an individual. Think of the public debate. Everybody are talking in some sense. They're screaming their opinions. And if I'm standing from the outside observing them, and this is the loudness that I see opinion I, or the proportion of opinions that I see. This is the proportion of opinion I that I see in this debate.
Whoever shouts more wins.
Yes. Yeah, at least you control the debate. Yes. Now pairs. The pair function, assuming that E is not a zero vector, the pair function for individual J in group I, or in group Ni, is he has a linear class function from screening his opinion, and he's compensated by the distance, the expected distance between the public opinion and his own opinion. Meaning, and you have a I-square. So the more the public opinion is close to mine, then I gain more. I wanna take the public opinion towards my opinion. However, I am extracting efforts, so for extracting this effort, I'm paying this cost of some linear cost.
Public opinion is a vector and this is something.
No, it's the random variable. That's the random variable. Okay, so it equals each of the opinion with this probability, and now we take the expectation, meaning the closer the distribution is, my opinion, I'm being more compensated. And okay, so as usual in our contest, we need to eliminate the idea that we have a zero vector because otherwise we don't have a competition. To begin with, then we just fix in case we have a zero vector. What we're doing is just taking a very small number, so that the possibility is just eliminated by definition. Questions?
The assignment of opinions to players, how does that work?
It's fixed. I mean, at this point, you're fixed. It's given. You have just players with opinions, and your opinion is just your prior evaluation. Somebody. Okay. And in terms of the terminology, O1 and OK are considered the extreme opinions, and everything in between is moderate. It's just in terms of terminology. Okay, so this is the entire model, simple one. The first main result. So this we call the silent majority vocal minority result. In every equilibrium, there's a continuum. And in every equilibrium, the effort level of every moderate player, opinions O2 to O-1, is 0. So everyone in between or just remain silent. Whereas the aggregate effort level of all extreme players, opinion Y and opinion K, are given by this number. This is the aggregate level. Okay? Because you have a continuum, there's free riding effect between individuals in the same group. So they can shift their effort level from one to the other. But in aggregate, you get uniqueness. So, okay, so basically what we have here is a situation where you hear only the extremists in a video. Now, I don't have it here, but in Lotem Ikan, we also considered quadratic class function and also square root. You get similar results. It's not that extreme, but you get similar results where usually you just hear only the extreme individuals within a public debate. Why is that? So the idea is that
turn on the light.
What's the comment?
So the idea is that we have this opinions online, and now the people that are most affected by the fact that others present their opinions are the two extremes, because we're taking the distance in absolute value. Once, say, O1 generates E1 equals 1, O1 are not affected because that's their opinion. O2 individuals are affected, but not to a great extent, because we're taking distance, and this between O1 and O2 is not that, right? It's not that vast. But if you take the distance between O1 and OK, these are the ones that are mostly affected by the fact that the people with opinion 1 just exert effort, to present their opinion. So they have a tendency to exert more effort, just to push others away so that they would control the debate. These two start increasing their effort levels, and in the same time, everybody in between are not. You can't really hear if you imagine this actually evolving. You can't really hear anyone with a moderate opinion. Their marginal incentive to exert effort is smaller than the two extremes. So at that point, you have a crowding out effect. The extremes start to shout. Everybody between 10 become more and more quiet until the point where they don't generate any effort whatsoever, and you only hear the extremes.
Yes, the assumption of linearity of the costing the effort is true.
Yes, but if it's not, we also consider quadratic cost function. You get similar results.
You mentioned loss function.
Yes, instead of a linear one, we also consider the square root of EJ and EJ to the power.
But you can also change the loss function.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, instead of a linear distance, you take a quadratic one.
And all these variations. So, yeah, that-
I didn't check how different metrics here change the result. Okay, we do have results for the class function itself, but different metrics might have a different impact. I'm not sure. My intuition is that it wouldn't change that much. I mean, based on some form of continuity, you would get moderate place to exert some effort, but not that much. That's my intuition. But yes, this is you think we're still trying to generate. The fact that it's linear, everything linear is nice because once you take first order conditions, you get a lot of linear algebra and everything is solved quite quickly. Once you diverge to anything other than linear, you don't get nice linear algebra result, and that becomes a bit problematic. And the Linster actually used these linear algebra techniques, but in a different context. Okay, so this is for equilibrium continues, so we can also consider the unique symmetric equilibrium. So there is a unique symmetric equilibrium by the fact that there is everyone molecule doesn't exert effort and symmetric in the for every individual with the same opinion, symmetric within groups of people with the same opinion. So obviously Ni is the number of players with opinion I, so we just divide the level of effort equally between all individuals with the same opinions. And over here you can see the expected payoff for everything there. And one thing to notice is the fact that you, by being extreme, I mean, the fact that you're extreme, it doesn't increase their payoff. I mean, they're losing more. Okay, so because you have this term, the fact that you're exerting effort actually makes you lose more.
But they lose because they begin in a bad situation. They are extreme, so they are hurt by effort public opinion. Not necessarily by the effort, by the effort.
Yeah, okay. So they begin with not being there is no normative aspect here. The extreme is basically people on the two sides. But the fact that they are most affected by others leads them to generate more effort, which leads to this term. So it is generated in equilibrium.
The other equilibrium, they look very different.
You can, there's a, I'm gonna, here, basically there's a free riding within each of these groups. So what you can do is shift effort from one individual to the other.
So is there a uniqueness of capital in there?
Yes, yeah, yes. That's the previous, this holds in every. Okay, so
Shouldn't the utility depend on J?
yeah.
Yeah.
So for every extreme individual, I and K, the payoff function, you get less small expected payoff.
So that
A
should
lower one.
depend on OI, I then,
Yes, the
Overall.
O1 and the distance between O1 and O8.
that's your all.
No, no. Well, because you're taking distance. So, and it's linear. So you're computing distance between this one and between this one, and basically you're just aggregating all. So and that's actually an important, I think it's here. it's independent of number of moderate opinions, their position, and the number of individuals. You can, it's general result. So, and the payoff, it's the same thing. So first of all, a few conclusion or observation. The crowding out effect, the fact that water plays their own certain effort, is beneficial for them in terms of expecting payoff. Everyone loses from
beneficial compared to what?
Individuals with extreme opinions.
You said that
They have basically it's my point of saying that they have a higher expected payoff than the one with extreme opinions.
yes, but you're talking about their behavior. You said this behavior is beneficial.
It's the result.
Okay.
The result. I mean,
Can you show again the green text?
yeah. In the unique symmetric equilibrium. Otherwise, this changes like kinetic and shift effort levels within extremes. Okay, so that's now. So at this point, we start considering the idea of taking the model to the next level. And one key element that actually bothered me, specifically regarding social networks, is the fact that we assume that everyone observes everyone. I mean, you have you have perfect monitoring over everyone in this game. And now we're going to assume that you don't have this. I mean, you have just limited observability. So we're extending the model to a limited exposure game. The idea is that you don't see everyone the same. We define an exposure level. That's delta between 0 and 1, time included 0. And now we update the pair function. Okay, sorry, there's a small typo here. It's supposed to be OI minus OL, or also later, OI minus OL. So the idea that you just discount opinions that are far from your own. Okay, so say I'm at O1, I discount opinions that they see, people with opinion 1 by delta. To the power of O2 minus O2. And the same goes for all others. Okay. So this is a specific form of discounting. Okay. And it depends on the distance between the opinions. The idea is that people that are close to you, there's a structure such that people that are closer to you, you are more exposed to their opinions. And now I'm going to limit the analysis because it gets too complicated to take 3 opinions, just 3. And in the symmetric case, the fact that the distance is 1 is not really relevant. It's not, it's without loss of generality. But the symmetric case is important for everything from this point onward. Okay. So now the idea was to study this update game, the idea of this game. And specifically what we wanted to do is to see how the equilibrium changes, and we wanted a specific metric to discuss these changes. And moving on from the previous motivation that we have of a silent majority and a vocal minority, now try to study polarization in the sense that once we observe a discussion, we want to present a metric to say how polarized is the discussion. I mean, how much of and how a metric for how heated is the debate. For that, we use the seminal paper of Esteban and Ray. So basically, I wasn't aware of it before. Once I tried studying polarization, but once I saw that this one has a few thousands of citations, I thought, well, maybe they were onto something. And they present a nice systematic approach to study polarization, okay, in different contexts, in general context. And we just took their result, their axiomatic result, and plugged it into our setting, okay, to define a metric. And it goes like this: you have the distance between your opinions, you have the aggregate affect levels, and just some normalization. And the idea is now that once I have a vector, 3 opinions, I can discount how polarized it is. And obviously it depends on the equilibrium, which also depends on the exposure.
What is the idea of power 2? Power 2.
So basically, they wanted to have it doesn't have to be a power of 2. It's A plus alpha, and alpha needs to be at least 1 or more. And then you need to change the normalization, the normalization also. So that according to your result, you don't need exactly 2. It's 1 plus alpha, and alpha needs to be greater than maybe 0. Some policy.
Just to be sure, this expression is a weighted sum. It's a weighted average of OI minus.
Yes, exactly.
So it's
Yes. So their idea was, I'm going to give you their motivation. Their idea was take some distribution maybe of income or some form, and then see how you can generate a metric where once you just split the individuals within moderate groups into the extremes, the metric increases. And they have a few axioms that present this idea, and by that they can sort this thing.
What sense is this weighted?
So
efficient sum to 1.
That would be
not exact. I mean, actually, the fact that we're using this is not really that important because you can just eliminate this term altogether. But I'm not sure that all the coefficient sum to 1. Maybe in our specific context of 2 distances of 1 and 2. Yeah, maybe not. A minute. That's e to the power of
No, it doesn't sum to 1 because we don't have
Yeah.
EIEJEK. We don't have the
yeah, but we're in this metric case, it's not really the vertical, but yes, that's true. But but basically you can ignore
I
it.
expected it.
If you want, you can ignore it just because you wouldn't change it. You can ignore the normalization, this time. Okay. So now that it's basically a definition, the polarization limit descent game increases in the exposure level if for any 2 exposure levels and in any equilibrium for each of them. The polarization given the lower exposure level is lower than the one given higher exposure. Meaning the more you're exposed to others' opinion, the result in equilibrium is that the polarization increases. Yes, it's the yes. So we're because there is the issue of equilibrium selection. So we wanted to put that aside So for any two exposure level, that's 1 and then 2, and for any equilibrium for each of them, any equilibrium given delta 1, any equilibrium given delta 2, we want to see that the polarization given the lower level is lower than the given the higher level. So now we don't need to consider some form of select.
So this means that the polarization is unique given the exploded level.
In the we get this in the result. In the we get it. I mean the one of the results. Supporting lemma for any given exposure level, the ratio between the aggregate FO level of moderate player and that of extreme players in every equilibrium is unique. And so this term is unique given delta. Okay. N is strictly decreasing in delta. And that holds for any group. Okay, so this is exactly what we just said. And we get the simplistic relation. This is not related to the polarization matrix. Obviously, this is just a group result.
The solution of this relation is
yes.
so it's an implicit function.
Yes.
The ratio of the function of the
Exactly. And now we can use this in order to describe the polarization. So this is the second main result. For any two exposure level and in any equilibrium for each, the polarization given the higher exposure level is higher than the polarization given the lower exposure.
say no politics.
Yes, but I just negative term. It's objective, they can find all the one. So the idea is the more you're exposed to others' opinion, the debate intensifies, and you get basically what you take the first result that we had regarding moderate and extreme opinions, and now we smooth them according to the exposure level, and you get a monotonic result. Meaning, the more you're exposed, you're more extremists are more inclined to manifest their opinions. So you get a heated debate, and the debate gets more polarized with the extreme case where delta is 1, and you hear only extremists. Okay. So now I want to.
So in general, you polarize the debate means that it goes to the sides.
Yes, that's also one of the axioms. That the extreme polarization case, where you have only the population is divided by people just in two extreme cases.
And exposure means that you can
the more you're exposed, then the fact that others manifest their different opinions affects you negatively. You have negative externalities.
and how is the discount parameter relevant? It doesn't.
No, it is the discounting is the exposure level.
The discounting is the exposure.
Yes.
So if you increase the discounting,
Then you see
more about the people who are close to you.
Yes.
No. Care more.
You care more about everyone, but you're more affected by opinions that are far away. I mean, it increases your effect.
So it's very good because it increases the effect of people who are far from you. So the extreme agents are more care about this.
Exactly. Exactly. So it extends the first result. It actually captures the first result, but you get some continuity effect by using the exposure level.
Delta goes from where to where?
Delta it's not zero because otherwise it's not well defined. From 0 to 1, not inclusive 0.
What happens when delta goes to zero?
So in 0 it's not defined basically.
No, both.
I have this. You get a very specific number. I have it in the next slide where we extend it on. But you get a very specific. Basically tends to get close to 1/3. I mean the proportion get close to 1/3, but not exactly.
And intuitively, very small delta means what?
A very small delta means that you don't really care about people with opinions that are far from your own. So now that the idea here, the fact that you're seeing a very polarized debate doesn't necessarily reflect the fact that the opinions are polarized. I mean, there's a distinction to be made between the actual distribution of opinions within a society and what you observe in the debate itself. I mean, these are not the same thing. So basically, you can have just very two small extreme groups. Everybody agree on a lot of topics, but still you would be able to see a very heated debate and maybe wrongfully assume that the population is polarized in terms of their actual opinions. This also my intuition is by the fact that we're using social networks and now opinions move very broadly. We are more connected nowadays than we were 20 years ago, and so this would seem to suggest that we should expect a more polarized observation about in public debates than we had 20 or 30 years ago. But not necessarily in terms of how sport level changes from history. Okay, so now we have this structure, and we said that let's start, because the idea was to study indoctrination, and the fact that people don't change their opinion is very problematic. So we said, okay, so let's start shifting opinions from one to the other. So now we're going to take the basic game and consider an evolutionary process. A dynamic opinion. Now we fix the exposure level delta, and the opinions that every player with opinion I see, or specifically a player with opinion I sees opinion J with this probability. Yes, with distances. Meaning this is how much I absorb others with this discounting. The fact that maybe some of the information doesn't reach me, or I just tend to override their opinions because I think they're not true.
So I see one opinion.
No, you see all other opinions, but this is the proportion that you see each of your opinions. So I'm going to stick to addition. You have opinion I. Another individual has opinion J. And now the probability of seeing his opinion is this.
So at stage B, I see 3 opinions.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
And now we're going to use this just to build a transition matrix. Basically, we're assuming that
No, I'm sorry. I said 3, but I shouldn't have said.
no,
Yeah,
three.
we have 3 opinions and opinions overall.
Yeah, 3 opinions.
But there's the probability that I see opinion 1. I may not see it. So on a given stage, I may see 0 opinions, 1 opinion, 2 opinions. What is the probability that I observe an opinion? How many opinions do I observe at a given stage?
3, but the probability can be either 0.
Probability of what? Observing it or not? Right?
So transition map, maybe
No.
it's
Yes,
adopted.
yeah. Opinions, but with different proportions.
No,
Okay?
you said the probability. It means something else. It's not a probability. It's
No, this isn't a probability.
Okay, it sounds to one.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, I said at stage T, I observe one opinion.
No, all three.
All three. So
Yes.
what is the meaning of the probability?
This is the proportion of seeing each of the opinions.
What
Yes.
is the interpretation of
You
the
have
proportion?
you have an hour. Okay. Okay. And now the probability, let's say, is a quarter, half and a quarter. Okay. So 15 minutes you see one opinion, 30 minutes you're seeing second opinion, and another 15 minutes you're seeing the last.
So divided by time.
For example, yes.
Then transition matrix means that you move from one opinion to the other.
Yeah.
It's probabilities.
Yeah.
It's basically adopting.
Yes, but I mean, when you say that, I observe opinion J with this probability, I think it's steady.
Okay, so well, just take the proportion of time that you see this opinion. Okay. And now we can just construct a transition matrix. Now, the nice thing about this is the fact that it's auto-generated in Blueprint. Not fixed. In every stage, you generate equilibrium, we generate a transition matrix, which evolves to the next stage, then moving on. So you have an auto-generated social order process. Okay, so now this is actually the result. That's the probability of shifting from opinion I to opinion J. That's the same term as before. Okay, so basically, you're sitting in a classroom, and people come and start presenting their thesis, their ideas, and with the proportion that you see, each of the opinions, that's the proportion that you're shifting. Basically, that's the probability of shifting between opinions, your own and different ones. The more they are manifested in equilibrium, the higher the probability of shifting to that opinion.
But it can be at some point that everyone is shifted towards the same opinion.
Yes.
And then nothing will change.
Yes.
So how do you get transmission?
That's the result itself. That's actually the result in equilibrium. You don't get the fact that everybody is shifted.
Well, that can happen just by chance.
Okay, so but basically we're assuming that you have a continuum of players and they shift according to the probability. I mean, once you have a mass of individuals, 20% shift one opinion, and 30% different opinion, and 50% stay. So now in using the equilibrium result that we had, we can construct the transitions of inequilibrium in one stage, where R is just the ratio between the aggregate effort levels of moderate players and that of one of the extreme groups. You can like
This is not a static thing,
why not?
because he said there's a continuum of groups.
Okay.
But what changes the proportion in the population?
Yes.
So that's not probability.
Okay. It doesn't really change the result. Yeah. So what we have is people shifting from one opinions to the other with proportion to what they see.
When I argued that you should say probability, what it actually meant was the probability of shifting to opinion J. Instead of observe.
Yes, but because I'm basically thinking of a mass of individuals, the proportion of individuals that shift to a different opinion.
Okay, so that's the same thing. Probability of one of them.
Yes.
Okay. A general question about this social learning model. Players are short-sighted. They only care about the current stage.
Yes.
Is that a normal?
And so, yeah, the idea is now it's basically better to think about religion. Okay, so you have an intergeneration process, and basically you have whether you're religious, secular, or in between. And now what you're seeing is how the generation evolved. Okay, So you care about what happens to your kids, they care about what happens to theirs, and so on.
Many people care about the generation.
Yes.
So they might strategically what to reserve effort for the next stage.
Yeah.
But my question is not about, maybe not about the religion or anything, about the general model of social learning that goes like this. That's my question. So what is it a normal model?
Well, basically, the social learning model is not, it's not close to the structure in general, because what we have here is here as people that are playing one stage game, which generates the process. And then you have different people playing the next stage. Okay, so basically, social learning models don't evolve that. You don't have a one stage game, and the transition doesn't occur in you.
Exactly. So that's what. If you have a game that is repeated from.
No, it's not a repeated game.
No,
Yes,
it's played in every generation. So what's a normal social learning process? We not talk about an equilibrium of that game.
there's no one stage equilibrium in social learning.
This is the novel model of social learning.
It's a vast literature, but to the best of my knowledge, don't have social learning models that auto generate themselves in one stage equilibrium. Don't have this.
So is it a good model? Can you justify this approach?
I
mean, to me, it sounded no.
Yeah,
Maybe good, maybe bad.
but yes, but my general understanding, well, it's where it's good or not depends on the prediction. Okay, so where you can actually get empirical result that match. I'm not aware. I mean, we don't have enough results to match this.
I'm not sure I understood because it looks for me a new one. So just to be sure, every period they look backward and decide upon the distribution of the last period of their belief what to do now.
So, but
They observe with probability different opinions and they change their opinion at this period and they move on to the next.
yeah, so
It's time model.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
So my interpretation, and you can take different ones, is you have one generation with a fixed distribution of opinions. Okay. Now they play the game that we saw in the second stage, the second part of the paper, and generate an equilibrium. In the first game. Next, this equilibrium actually determines the distribution of opinions for the second generation. The second generation has different individuals, and they evolve according to the equilibrium that they saw.
so the previous generation died.
Yes.
They know what happened there. According to this distribution, they decide what to do. And
They get new opinions according to the new distribution, the generator.
no, the next generation will
Yes.
get a new opinion.
Maybe,
I don't care about their opinion, new opinion, because it doesn't change that.
yeah,
So the next generation will learn like this.
yes,
So and they would like to maximize their expected utility
yeah, so everybody are
by
off.
changing, so it doesn't, so their motivation is to say their opinion such that the public average opinion will be something.
Similar to theirs. Their idea is, you think about,
Do they take into account the other actions of the other players?
not all particular generations.
History.
Yes, just next year. But the fact that they are trying to indoctrinate, right? What they are doing, they are trying to control the debate. Once you control the debate, everyone in the next stage would shift to your opinion. Okay, so now basically what I'm doing is I'm providing some substance into this term, into the term that we had this one. This would scheme. So we basically just assume that they want the public opinion to be close to theirs and it's. Now what I'm saying is they want to do that because that would reflect what would happen in the next generation. If this is zero, if the entire public opinion is mine, then next generation is entirely occupied by people with opinion I. So basically provide some explanation to this.
But as much as I understand, they don't care about the next one, the next period. They care about this period.
No, they care about this term, which also determines what happens next generation.
Right. But
So basically, they care about what happens next generation. They're trying to get the next generation. You're trying, basically what I'm saying is.
This is the effect of the
Yes.
utility, but
Yes.
it's not the.
So basically what they're trying to do is getting their kids to be either religious or secular as they are. They're trying to convey the same opinions they have to their children.
You're saying there's a continuum of fallacy.
Yes, I'm a mass one of individuals.
So capital E is the integral of the efforts.
No, you can think, no, it's just a vector with 3 numbers with the aggregate levels. You can just take the aggregate levels.
Aggregated any
Yes,
with respect to. some-
any term there, any term would be an integer. So you have E1, that will be E1, E2, and E3.
Right, so it's an integral with respect to some non-atomic measure,
Yes.
which means that your own effort has no effects whatsoever.
Yes, that is like the lighting effect that we had before. You need to first use a finite version. And then extrapolate to some continuum. But this, in terms of that it makes basically just the interpretation.
What's the model?
The moral is you have a large number of individuals, a very high number of players, and you let them play. And they shift between opinions according to this metrics.
Okay, so following what you said,
That's not for any finite number of things.
it is a word.
No. Because once everyone is shifted by chance or the same opinion.
No, okay, so assuming that assuming that you're starting with I'm not sure exactly how much, but you can get this with a very high probability. At least that as long as no group is empty, this holds. Okay, as long as Ni is not an empty set, the matrix holds. For every Ni. And every group.
The matrix is the limit.
But it's an important point, yes.
I should think about the large population of finite.
Yeah,
And the matrix is supposedly the limit behavior,
no,
the limit of the equilibrium.
no, the matrix is you just take the equilibrium result, giving any number of players. I mean, assuming that if all opinions are occupied.
Even if there's a small number of players, the matrix is the equilibrium.
Assuming that all opinions are occupied, you have individuals holding that.
So that's the equilibrium behavior, and you say that if the population is large, then the equilibrium. Okay, so what Eagle was arguing is that there's a probability that things are different, but you say
Yes, that's an accurate statement. Assuming that one of these sets becomes empty, then the equilibrium changes. At least one of the extreme changes. Moderate one doesn't get affected. So the equilibrium would change because there's a basic assumption that we have at least 2 opinions and at least 2 individuals. More than 2 opinions. That's in the beginning of this. So assuming that remains throughout the process of the game, then this matrix.
But this assumption is highly probable that the population is damaged.
I need to check. I'm not. Yeah, I need to check. I think so, but I maybe put another okay, so now the stationary distribution. Let's see this. That's the stationary distribution of the previous transition matrix.
It's complicated.
Actually it's not that problematic. So now, first of all, and this would be also the dilemma, the type 2, the second term here is decreasing. R is the equilibrium result, is decreasing in delta.
How is that?
R is the ratio between the aggregate effort levels of moderate player and the aggregate effort levels of one of the extreme groups. So this metric, so say. Now, once you have maximum exposure, then the collision gets completely polarized. Okay, so everybody shift because nobody is presenting the moderate opinions in a group. Okay. In a group, nobody is debating that people should take O2. So once we have delta equals 1, everybody shifts to the extreme.
So when delta is 1, R is
0. Yes.
Yeah. So,
And now, actually, there's also one. I apologize, but there's a mistake here. It's close. It's a bit more than 0.3. This is less than 0.4.
What is the minimal exposure? Means you care more about
That's the limits. I mean, that's when delta shifts to, and we're just taking the limit here, when delta goes to 0, that you don't really care about others. Or you take this, you fix delta, and then you take the limit when delta goes to 0.
you could have distinguished between two parameters that are now reflected by data, no? If I understand correctly. Because data reflects how much you care about others and also the difference between how much you care about the closer one and the
Yes. So
you could potentially different.
Yeah, that's what we're actually trying to understand now. Because that would
do different effects, and we cannot
exactly.
We cannot be sure what what is really affecting the
actually I want to discussing with the game before is you can also consider a non-symmetric effect by taking that delta between 1 and 2 is different between delta between 2 and 1. Okay, so it's a directed effect.
But if we go ahead with the first option, the different effects, I would say that if you keep your careness about others the same and just changes how much you care about the closer neighbors, the farthest, it might be a non-monotonic effect. I mean,
yeah,
I would get that even heterogeneity can affect the same whether you care more about the closer or the far.
Yes. Yes.
And then it goes to the extreme, so it might be interesting.
Yeah.
why should I don't get it? Why should they exert any effort at all if data is very small?
So this is just proportions, right? So you're exerting small efforts, but everybody are talking.
So I want everybody just
Keep quiet.
Yeah.
So with this basic assumption where you have a zero vector, everybody gets minus infinity in order to limit this possibility in talent like this. In basic context, you need to limit the possibility that nobody is competing. So you just insert that assumption.
Okay, but what would be the level of efforts? Would they be very small? Very small?
Yes. This is what I was just saying. I2, the proportion of model, not exactly proportion, but this number, I2, is decreasing in delta. I mean, the more you see, others, then you have less probability for water.
So here, the minimum exposure, the moderate people exert more.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's not, I need to correct this, but yes, they support.
I was thinking,
Basically, it's independent of their sizes. I don't know. My best guess would be that it would be one over 3, but there might be the possibility that our assumptions, the fact that they're in the middle, somehow affects this. I'm not sure.
Think it because they have two neighbors. And they when you take delta,
Yeah.
equal delta,
Yeah.
you also increase how much you care about your neighbors.
Yeah. So you have this non-linearity here. It might be of some assistance. That's it. The fact that you have some quadratic effects here, according to the distance of one extreme over the other. Over here, you can see the probability. You don't have any other effect according to delta, but that's might be. Okay. Okay, so key takeaways. What we were able to do is to explain the sound majority phenomenon, the volume phenomenon, discuss polarization and exposure, how exposure affects polarization, and the fact that maybe what we're seeing nowadays is more polarized debate, but it doesn't necessarily reflect the idea that the population is more polarized. And a new type of a social learning model, where you have this auto-generated process where the evolution is determined in group. Now, I think that we have a lot of possibilities of understanding the first results in basic models. And there's also the possibility of extending this learning process, because at this point, in equilibrium, you get the same transition. So it would be interesting to see what would be the result once the transition matrix changes, but not all that much. I mean, you have some limited adjustments to the transition matrix that are endogenously determined. That's all. Question.
What else is this learning? What do they learn?
So we use this sort of learning terminology just to relate it to different learning processes, but they don't really relate. This is why we call this the indoctrination. They're being indoctrinated. They just absorb others. Okay, so in that case, it's actually an indoctrination process and not a learning process.
so when you say learning, it's usually long term. That's
Learning. Bayesian learning is to learn a true state.
social learning. Long term or not necessarily. That's the question.
Learning refers to knowledge.
That's a great term. The two starting paragraph as of the paper stated, we talk about beliefs in game theory, and beliefs actually reflect knowledge. Okay, you have knowledge, but opinions are not knowledge. your perspectives, your preferences. Yeah. Or complementary.
So ignorance is.
So that's actually what we're advocating for, exactly that.